my sweet little noodles, it's Brittany, and today we're gonna do another reading vlog, and this time it's gonna be for some young adult, hard-hitting contemporaries.
It's Brittany, bitch.
I don't know if you can hear that weird high-pitched noise in the background, but I'm pretty sure that my neighbor is home and she's vacuuming, and it sounds like ooh. So if you hear that noise, that's what I think is her, and of course it's the minute I decided to fucking film before I have a meeting. But I wanted to fill you in on some of the books I'll be reading for this reading vlog. Also, this is the first reading vlog where I will have my new glasses for the entire time. So I decided to finally get new glasses after like 8 years of not having new glasses because my old ones were literally peeling. So I was like forced to go get another eye test, and my prescription did change like a very small amount. And it's supposed to be like inconsequential, but it's very disorienting having new glasses. Like everything looks very different. So if I look a little like dazed, that's probably why. So I'll be reading 3 books for this reading vlog, and 2 of them are going to be for the magical Readathon. Now, if you've not already seen that video, please go ahead and watch it. It'll kind of explain what I'm doing this month, but let's just get into the books. I'll be reading The Other Side of Infinity, Yolk, and We Are Okay. So the first one I'm going to start with is We Are Okay because this is the one that I have for the audiobook prompt for the magical Readathon, and it's a pretty short audiobook. I actually hope to finish it today after my meeting. So I have a couple of meetings and then I think I can finish it on audio. Obviously I have to read it on audio because it's the prompt for an audiobook, but I decided to get the hard copy just to make it easier for editing purposes and showing you what it is. But I really do love this cover. It's so pretty. And this book is apparently about a very depressed teenager who's had just like a lot of death in her life, and her grandpa just passed, and he's the one who kind of like basically raised her after her mom died in a surfing accident, and now he has passed, and she's kind of cut herself off from the world. She cut herself off from her really good friend slash lover named Mabel, and Mabel I think comes to visit her, and they're kind of like trying to like get to like the nitty gritty of like why our main character Marin has like cut herself off from the world. I'm only 25% of the way into this one, so I don't really know much else other than that, but I'm pretty sure it's just like a sad, depressing young adult coming of age thing where she's obviously like suffering from her life, and she's like trying to put everything in its own little boxes, and it's just not really working very well. And I think that she obviously has an attraction to her friend Mabel, and Mabel's continually trying to like offer olive branches and like help Marin out, and she just kind of like keeps refusing everything. So I'm very curious to get more into this. I'm pretty sure I can finish it today on audio, but we will see. I have to go join my meeting. It's literally in 2 minutes. But I want to give you guys a quick update on my lunch. So I'll get back to you guys when I finish this, which should hopefully be later today, if not tomorrow at the absolute latest. So I finally finished We Are Okay, and this is a pretty short audiobook. It took me about 4 hours in total to complete it, but this book was just not it. I'm telling you to give this only 2 stars. I feel like this is a really good book about grief and loss, but for some reason this just did not connect with me, and I didn't connect to any of the characters, so it just felt like a really boring time. I'm pretty sad about it because I've been wanting to read this book for years, and like I've just been so pulled in by the cover, and I love like a good depressing teen grief story. Like that's just like my thing. So I'm really sad that I didn't love this because I usually love these types of books. I usually like these types of themes. Like they just usually work for me, but I just didn't connect with any of the characters, and I didn't really connect with the storyline. Overall, like nothing really changed a whole lot. I mean, of course, there's like a little happy ending, but it just wasn't like the book I was expecting. My old coworkers used to say that I sneezed like Pikachu. Let me know if that's true. Anyway, this was just not the book I thought that it was. Like, I just thought I was gonna go a little bit deeper. Like, I don't know, there's definitely is a good exploration of grief and like how different people handle things. And I really like some like the familial betrayals and stuff in here. Like, I don't want to ruin a whole lot for you because obviously it's a really short book. I don't know, this just did not work for me like I was expecting it to. I really wanted to like fall deeply into like this depression. I wanted to fall deeply into these emotions and the grief. And I just didn't feel that for these characters. I mean, her mom, you know, died when she was younger in a surfing accident. Her grandfather is raising her. She finds out some crazy stuff later on about her grandfather and her mom, and it just kind of like all comes together in a good way. And obviously her grandfather dies, and then we kind of get to like see back in time what happened with that. I mean, those little bits were interesting, but every single time that we had Marin and Mabel in a room, so Marin's our main character and Mabel is like her past lover slash like best friend, I just really like checked out. I found the relationship so uninteresting. It was just like really upsetting, and it just did not work for me. I really wanted to root for this book, but every single time they were in a room together and they were just talking, which is like 90% of what happened, or they were eating or pottery or whatever, like I don't fucking care. Like it was just so boring. I only liked the few family bits and a bit of like family drama. Other than that, it just did not entice me. So this reading vlog started off a little bit differently than I had imagined, and I'm not really sure which one I'm going to attempt next. I'm also terrified of being disappointed again because I really had high hopes for that one. It was just like kind of like a nice little hope in the background. Like I was really gonna like love this like deep depressing story, and it just was not that for me. So whenever I finally decide to pick up a book, I will let you guys know. But as of right now, I don't really know where I stand with this reading vlog. I am just kind of at an impasse. I was really hoping for that to be like at least a 4-star, and now that it's not, I'm just kind of disappointed by the genre as a whole, and I feel like I need to try something else. So we'll see what I come back with, but I will let you guys know when I decide to start one of the other books. All right, noodles. So I ended up finishing The Other Side of Infinity, and honestly, I sat on this book for a few weeks. Like I finished this pretty early on in August, and I just really needed some time to think about my review and my rating and really how I felt about it. Our main protagonist is December, and she basically has this gift of precognition or psychic abilities. So she can basically see what's going to happen at like any point in time in the past, present, and future. The only thing that she can't see is the blank spot, which occurred whenever she told her mother something a very long time ago, and then ever since that moment, she can't remember anything about her mom. Like her mom basically disappeared. We don't know where she went, what's going on with her, if she's okay. Like we really don't know what's going on with December's mom at all. And long story short, December and Nick cross paths at the public pool where he's a lifeguard, and a teacher is drowning and he needs to save this teacher, but Nick basically stops and he doesn't like save the teacher. Like he's like not saving the teacher fast enough. So December jumps in and saves the teacher's life, because basically if Nick would have jumped in eventually, he would have saved him, but like it would have led to a lot of like health issues and stuff for the man that was saved. So this teacher, who's like very special and like a wonderful teacher for all the kids at the school, he would have been like permanently kind of like damaged from like being rescued from the water too late, basically. So December intervenes. So now she's like changed the timeline, and now she realizes that her and Nick are gonna fall in love, but Nick is gonna die because of it. So this is obviously a very strong premise. Like this was really interesting, and it's very like the butterfly effect-y, and I really like that about this book. Like it really intrigued me. Like the first like half of this book was just so entertaining, and I just really wanted to know where it was gonna go. I loved how much information we got about December's ability and how unique it was and how it kind of worked, but it didn't like lose its magic because we didn't like pull it apart and extrapolate like what was actually going on with her ability. We kind of just like, you have to believe in that magical realism part of it, but it was really well done, and I really like her ability, except when it came to that blank spot, which is a little bit frustrating, but I'm gonna explain that a little bit later. There was also really good dyslexic representation, and listen, I'm not dyslexic, but I think it was done well, but like take that with a grain of salt because obviously I don't have dyslexia. Nick has it, and he basically struggles with it. At what point in the book he ends up cheating on a test because the teacher like refuses to make a test in his kind of a format. Instead of like him using like the crutch he had to like learn better, he basically cheated. That's a whole other subplot that's like really not that interesting, and then it's like kind of dropped really quickly. But anyway, this is a really cute magical contemporary, but I think I'm gonna give this 3 stars. And let me explain a little bit of like why I dropped it down, because I really thought this was gonna be a good at least 4 to 5 star. Like this started off really strong. Like I just really couldn't put it down. I was very intrigued. So after the beginning part, nothing really happened in the middle. And then a big part of it is Nick keeps asking December to go to the journalist who printed something in the newspaper about Nick saving the teacher, because he feels guilty that he is the one who actually saved the teacher, and he wants December to go to the journalist guy and get him to like rescind the information and print like a "we fucked up" sort of thing. And she refuses to do it, and he's like, well, will you do it if I find your mom? Because he's really into like this podcast, like this murdery podcast, and like finding people. So he basically offers like find her for free and just like go and try his hand at finding her. And December honestly does not care. She's like, I don't really care to find my mom, and I really don't care to like talk to the guy and correct him, so I don't know what you want me to say. I thought that was a really weird plot. Like I like the fact that he went to find her mom, but the fact that she herself did not care to find her mom, it just kind of felt disrespectful that Nick kept pushing it and kept searching for her mom even though she didn't want to be like found, and December didn't care to find her mom. That was very upsetting. It was also annoying. If I was in December's position, I would have been really pissed and probably would have stopped talking to that person, because like don't do something that you don't have with my permission, especially reaching into like such a personal history. I just found that like really fucked up. And I'm not gonna spoil for you what happens with December's mom, but that whole storyline was just not done to my liking. Basically they find out what happened to her. I just feel like that was not a good enough explanation for why you should leave your child. You know, I just don't think that was acceptable. That was not cool. I don't think that was a cool way of explaining something. It also was like never confirmed. Like all this is like conjecture, because it's not like we get a hold of December's mom and she like confirms everything. It's all conjecture based on what Nick finds, and he's like, oh, this is like logically what's happening, which is probably right. But the fact that we don't get an actual confirmation was also just incredibly frustrating, because this was such a big plot point for this book. So it ended up being incredibly unsatisfying, and just like I feel like it let the book down. Like I was really excited up to that point, and then like when we kind of get the explanation, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? what is that? And on top of not loving the explanation for December's mom's disappearance, I really did not like the ending. It came out of left field. It was very jarring. I think because I didn't emotionally connect with the characters, it just didn't really have the emotional effect on me that I think that the author was intending. But this book like does not have that effect on me at all. Like I was like a little like, oh, that sucks, but it was never anything that truly emotionally impacted me. It also kind of came out of left field with like no foreshadowing. And maybe I was just dumb and missed it. But like no matter what, like I just didn't care enough about the characters to care about what happened. And especially after the December mom thing, which is what I was really invested in, after I was let down so badly on that plot point, I just really kind of didn't care anymore. So I kind of just tried to finish it out and like finish up and wrap up the story. But I mean, it's just a shame because like the first half was like definitely like a 4-star and the second half was more of like a 2-star, you know? It's just upsetting. So I set it on a 3-star. I feel like that's fair. I think it's a good book. I think a lot of people would absolutely love this book and be like shocked and emotionally invested in the ending. But like for me, it just didn't work. And you know, I'm a little upset about that. I think that's also why I've had a time to digest this because I'm upset. Like honestly, if you really like a book and you think you're gonna love it and then you don't, especially when they like ruin a plot point that you like really wanted to see handled so differently, it's just upsetting. I think overall this is like a really well written like young adult contemporary. I think it can be very hard hitting. It was very intriguing. I just think that if a couple things were changed and we had some more personality for our main protagonists and maybe a little bit more of a plot other than those plot points, like this definitely would have been like a 5-star. Like this could have been a really, really good book. I just feel like not a whole lot happened in the middle. You know, the beginning and the ending had stuff happening, but other than that, I just feel like nothing really happened. And maybe it's again because I wasn't emotionally invested, but no matter what, I mean, I would recommend this book. I think you should definitely pick it up and try it for yourself. I'm really curious how you guys would feel about it, but for me, it's gonna get 3 stars. Now, let me talk about the joy that is Yo. And I don't really know even how to talk about this book, but I'm actually 70% of the way into this. Obviously, it's been many weeks since I finished the other book. This book has taken me a very long time to get into. I'm really struggling with this more than I thought I was going to. I picked this up because I was very intrigued by the first chapter. Like, this seems like a really fast read. In a lot of ways, it is. Like, the chapters are very short. Like, they kind of get to the point, but I'm having a really hard time with these two insufferable sisters. Granted, I don't have a sister, so, like, I don't know if this is actually, like, you know, how sisters talk to each other or behave, but, like, there's a lot of trauma in this family. And if I was their therapist, I would literally refer them to a different therapist that has more experience because I literally cannot handle them. So number one, I think it's very confusing that their names are June and Jane because I keep mixing them up. Even though they're obviously very different characters, in a lot of ways they aren't. And having their names be so similar is very frustrating, okay? But the whole main premise of this, and this happened like the first couple of chapters, is that we find out Jane is our main character, okay? She's our main protagonist. She's the younger sister out of 2 sisters. They are Korean American. They grew up in Texas. They both now live in New York. Jane is pursuing a fashion degree and her sister is like a soulless lawyer. We find out that June actually has cancer. So that's quite the bombshell. And that's why I was really invested in this in the beginning. But these sisters are just so toxic, not only to themselves, but to other people. And obviously Jane has quite an eating disorder and they both are obviously very mentally ill in different ways. So it's very frustrating to read. I think it's also because I like to like my characters. I don't mind an unlikable character every now and then, but like I can like a lot of unlikable people, you know? But in a book where there's pretty much no redeemable qualities about any of the characters, like it's very hard for me to actually give a shit. I can't even really explain to you all the stuff that's happening because honestly a lot of stuff has happened. There's been a lot of like plot developments for either one of the sisters, but basically where I am so far is they both go back home to visit their family in Texas and June does not end up telling her family that she has cancer. And the other upsetting thing is, which I don't think is a spoiler, the kind of the plot twist in the middle was June has been using her sister Jane's name in the medical insurance. So if June dies, Jane dies. So like our main character will show as legally dead. And so in order for her to like continue on, she would have to like take her sister June's name. You know what I mean? So it's just a very like upsetting book in general. Like it's very like dark and emotional, but on top of that, like these characters are just very fucking frustrating. But Jane basically lost her job. And so she uses Jane's insurance through school. And that's why she uses Jane's name. But again, all this was like unbeknownst to fucking Jane. And then she finds out whenever she ends up living with June because her living situation is not great. She was living with kind of like an ex named Jeremy, who's just kind of like a piece of shit. I mean, honestly, the women in this book have absolutely no respect for themselves. I feel like if I was a teenager, I would have really loved this because I kind of had that self-loathing that the characters do. Like they really hate themselves. They hate their lives. They hate half of their family, even though like they pretend to be like there for obligations obligations. Like, I think that there's a lot of things you could take out of these characters, but to me, they're just insufferable to read about. And I'm just having a really hard time caring for these characters. And they honestly just end up frustrating me to the point where, like, I literally had to put this down so many times because just them talking to each other was just so, like, rude and frustrating, especially because, like, I can't really root for either one of them. Like, not that I don't care that she has cancer, but, like, oh my God, like, they're insufferable to deal with. And I think that the whole point is you're supposed to try to find empathy for these characters, even though they're both fucking assholes in different ways. And I think that Jane is kind of coming on her journey trying to have empathy for her sister June, who she's always kind of like had a problem with. There's no other way to describe them. But anyway, I'm really gonna try to finish this up in the next day here or so because I really want to get this off my TBR. Like, I have been reading this pretty much all month and I don't think it's a bad book. I just don't really know if it's a book for me. I just don't know if I can like such unlikable characters for this long. And it really isn't even that long of a book, but like, it's just been very frustrating. I just have a really hard time connecting to people who treat other people like this and think like this. I don't know. Anyway, this is a really long clip. I'm so sorry. Once I finish this, I'll get back to you guys. So hopefully that'll be the next few days here because I really just want to move the fuck on. And I want to finish out this reading vlog and just move on with my life.
I can see it in your eyes, like chemistry stare I can't deny. It's all the candid feed. Won't you tell me that it's real? You're in my feelings. I can't believe that. Boy, I found you. I found you. Yeah. So take your time, I can get enough. I just wanna dance with you. So can you keep it up, boy? Can you keep it up, boy? Keep it up, keep it up. Why do I keep on standing here when
I finally finished this book and I think I'm gonna round this up to 3 stars. I feel like this just is not the book for me. It was not the book I was expecting. I was just really expecting a like hard-hitting young adult contemporary. And this definitely does not feel young adult. It feels like it touches on a lot of like at least new adult topics. It's very dark, very heavy, and I just don't like the characters. And I think that this is the type of book when it's very character-based that you need to like the characters. You need to be able to like these very unlikable protagonists. And for me, I just can't wrap my head around that in this book specifically. I can support a lot of bad characters, but these ones are just, they're so infuriating and they're so frustrating to read, and it's so hard to get behind them when they're not really like good people overall. They're not nice to other people. They think they're better than everybody else. And I understand they're going through a lot of their own mental health issues. Like, there's some severe eating disorder in here. Like, it's severe. I mean, your sister has cancer. You came from a toxic family. Like, I get it, but it just wasn't the book I was necessarily expecting. I honestly thought this was a little more heartwarming, and I thought there'd be a little bit more of like a coming together at the end because it still feels very unfinished. I feel like for how long this book was, nothing really happened, and we just had a lot of like meandering chapters where Jane is having terrible sexual exploits, and I feel like nothing's really wrapped up. Towards the end, Jane takes some action to help her eating disorder, but that's really it. And then at the end, they kind of come together for Jane's cancer, but like it's really not closed in any way that to me is satisfying. Like, the ending was just very satisfying after such a weirdly plotted book where there's a lot of like tangents. I just feel like I wanted something to bring it together a little bit better in the end. I wanted it to tie all together just a little bit more. You know, this is one of the books I feel like could have used an epilogue to kind of explain things, or like a 10 years later sort of thing I would have been okay with. I just feel like there wasn't any closure from this. I feel like you ripped open a wound and you poured salt in it and then you just let it fester. You didn't try to wrap it up and clean it off. I also don't understand, did I miss that? Like, did I miss what this meant in the book? I just realized that. I have no idea why this book is called that. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like this book is just, it's very, very subjective. I feel like a lot of people, I'm sure, really like it. I've had this suggested many times by people, and I really love how it does this on, you know, the pages and all this other stuff. Like, I like the idea of this book. I just didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I'm gonna lovingly give it 3 stars. I feel like that's the nicest I can do because I kind of just didn't really enjoy reading this at many parts. I wanted to put it down a lot, and I did put it down a lot because I kind of had to for my mental health, because being in these abusive ass characters' heads was really frustrating for me to try to root for somebody who just is genuinely not fun to read about. And that's not even including like the heavy stuff. Like, obviously, you know, eating disorders and stuff, cancer and stuff, that's heavy and that's okay, but I just don't like the way a lot of this was handled. And again, the lack of closure really bothers me here. I am ambivalent to these type of endings. I really like them sometimes, and other times they don't work. And this type of more of an open-ended ending or a more of a lack of closure just really maybe bothers me in this sense because the rest of the book was just so unhinged and didn't really come together in a way that I found satisfying. So I wanted a satisfying ending. But this book, it feels unfinished. I feel like we're missing an entire chapter. So overall, 3 stars. And I'm just a little disappointed because the highest rating of this entire reading vlog is 3 stars. But you know, they can't all be winners. I think that the highest contender for that could have been The Other Side of Infinity if things were done in a way that I liked and again, things were wrapped up. I think that's a thing I've had an issue with all 3 of these books is I don't like their endings. Like they're not ending in a way that I like, in a good closure type of way. I feel like for books like these, again, like I don't mind a little bit of uncertainty or like oh, did this happen? Like, but I just want like a little bit more. And not one of the books in this reading vlog did that for me. So this is the first reading vlog that you're gonna see that I finished for the magical readathon autumnal equinox. So after this, you should be expecting a romance reading vlog and then a dark academia reading vlog. So those are the ones I have set out for the rest of the month. And honestly, I'm probably barely gonna make it, but I'm gonna make it happen. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys all very, very soon. Have a lovely day. Bye.